Hey everyone, thank you for joining me. So as you guys can see, I have a lineup of custom knives here. Now these are some of my favorite builds of 2022 so far, and I do have a couple other knives that I'll be talking about later in the video. I just wanted to go a little bit more in depth about these knives and some of the struggles I had with them, and yeah, let's get right into it. So I have the 0308 here by ZT. Now this was the 4th of July edition or version I did earlier this year. It's got the Nebula Fat Carbon, which has the red, white, and blue colors. And I did create a custom pocket clip as well. And then a filler piece that I pressed in to match everything and basically cover that hole that had easy access to the bearings. And I don't understand this aspect of the design where you have easy access for dirt to get into, but I just got around it by creating that filler piece, which I think looks really good. Complements the pocket clip and the show side scale. But this one was interesting since that pivot insert has a lot going on in there, but luckily I had my CNC to get that going and get it all figured out. And then the other hardware holes were pretty basic, and that lanyard hole. But this one cooperated with me. I didn't really have to fight it too much to create the scale. The pocket clip was really fun to make, and as you guys can see, the front end of that pocket clip is pretty wide and big, and the reasoning behind it was, and I know I'm not the only one, I know ZT0308 owners know exactly what I'm talking about, but when you flip the knife with the original pocket clip, you end up putting pressure on this lock bar, and it's really difficult to flip open unless you keep your fingers off of it. But I made it wider here in the front, so when you hold onto the knife, you're not even able to put pressure on this lock bar, which makes it super easy to flip. I can flip it every time, there's no issues, and you don't even have to think about opening this thing. So awesome knife, and more than likely after I sell this one, I'll definitely be buying another one because I want to do another version or a style to this knife. But overall, love this knife. Awesome, awesome stuff. And we will go on to the Demko AD-20S. Now, this knife was a really, really big challenge. I tried doing all the hardware holes by hand in the drill press, but I ended up learning that if the stop pin holes aren't perfectly aligned, then it keeps the knife from functioning properly, which is not a good thing. So what I ended up doing was using some cheap G10 material, and I used the CNC to create all the holes, maybe 7 or 8 trial runs before I got it perfect, and then I fully committed on this thicker white G10. As you guys can see, it looks good and it functions properly. So originally I wasn't even going to make scales out of this material, it was just a test run, but the customer really liked the look of the white G10 and we went with it. So the original design was to use full brass and create just a really heavy and chunky 20S, which was successful. Again, I'll leave all the full length videos of these custom knives down below. You guys can check out the full process of each of these knives. But I ended up learning a lot on this knife, and I still actually have the schematics in the computer so I can create more scales for this knife. So really happy about that. But etched and stonewashed the blade, and I gave it that hamon edge. Not a real hamon, but this is a look that I've been trying out, and I'm actually really happy with it. This is the D2 steel version. We ended up heat anodizing all the hardware, so a nice bronze gold look to it, which looks really good against the white. Same with the clip. And yeah, this thing was really, really frustrating to work with, but fun at the same time, if that even makes any sense. But I did end up putting that scallop pattern on the lock bar and then the top end or edge of the blade. Functions beautifully, really light, and I did end up deleting the steel liners. So now we can move on to the next knife, which this one was really, really fun to do. And not only was it fun to work on, but it's a really, really good knife. This is the Kansept Pretatout. apparently it's a French name, so I'm not even going to attempt to say it in French. So this is the Pretatout. And as you guys can see, I used the Dunes fat carbon material, which is just awesome, awesome stuff. I've mentioned it many times before in my other videos that fat carbon makes just beautiful, beautiful scale material. Now this one doesn't have a custom clip since it is titanium already, and that's a great material. I was thinking about anodizing it, but I left it alone since I really wanted this knife to be stealthy, other than the pivot collars, but just really dark. So I ended up etching and stone washing the blade and liners. As you guys can see, the liners more of a gray look, complements that flashy look in the fat carbon. And the blade, really, really happy with how this thing turned out. I did, again, another Hamon etch, or illusion, if you will, and then I stone washed it. And the cool thing about this etch is it kind of hides at certain angles. I don't know if I can get it on camera, but at certain angles it just kind of fades away, and then the light will actually expose that Hamon look. But really, really love this knife. I definitely need to get another one since this is going to a friend of mine. It's going to be a gift for him, but definitely want one of these in my own personal collection. And this is actually my first attempt creating those flats, as you can see right there, here on the top and on the back there. Let's see if I can get it on camera. Right there on the back, which exposes really, really cool stuff underneath. But I wanted a little more to it since it was just a flat basic scale, just to give it a little bit more character. I also did create custom fat carbon pivot collars. I'll leave a quick little video up here on screen of what it looks like on this knife, but just really, really happy with it. Really stealthy, and yeah, I can't say any more good things about this knife. It's really, really excellent, awesome ergos, and just super smooth. Highly recommend this one. This is the Kansept Pretatout. So now we're going to move on to the AD-20.5 from Demco. So this thing it's very, very popular in the knife community, and I wanted to do something unique to my own personal 20.5, and this is what I ended up doing. I ended up using some blue gradient G-Carta, and then I heat anodized the hardware and created a custom, I'm calling it a shark tooth style pocket clip. As you guys can see, I tried to imitate the shark tooth look to the pocket clip, which I think I got pretty close. Let me know if you guys can see it, but unfortunately I am not able to create scales with recessed liners yet, but I just built over on top of these, so as you guys can see the gap over the liners, and then even same thing underneath here, right there. It doesn't bother me too much, but since I learned a lot from the 20S, I learned that I can just create linerless scales, and then just used hardened steel washers to let the bearings ride on. Now this does have the skiff bearings installed, which work great for this knife, super smooth. And I did create that same scallop pattern texture on the lock bar and then the front end of the blade, which is why I did on this knife, since the customer really liked that look and wanted it on his knife. So this is basically just the baby version of that. And I did create a G-Carta backspacer, and really happy with it. It's a little rough, but I think I'm going to refinish the handles just to make them a lot cleaner. But overall, really pleased with the etch and stone wash. I think it looks really, really good. And just an overall great knife. And a lot of people love this knife, which is understandable. Very fidgety and just very unique. And this is the AUS-10 A steel blade version. Eventually I'll work up to the 3V version, but really, really like this knife. Next up we have, I think, one of the best budget knives of 2022. I think it came out in 2022, but the Kizer Towser K, just an amazing knife, crazy smooth. I mean, you just push that liner lock and it just guillotines shut, falls shut beautifully, smoothly. I mean, I could go on about the action, but this one I really love how it turned out. It's a bit on the darker side, but I ended up using Tigerback Gicarda just because it's got a really cool look to it. And if you look at it in person, it really messes with your eyes, which is just a really interesting thing about this material. I created a custom fat carbon pocket clip, and I did do a how-to video on how to make a custom pocket clip, which I'll leave up here somewhere in the corner. You guys can check that out. But really happy with how this thing turned out. I also etched and stone washed the blade. Again, I did that Hamon. I think this was the first knife I attempted this look on, and I think it looks really good. Very happy with it. I would definitely be experimenting more with this etch, but I left the hardware screws on the pocket clip a satin finish just to complement the thumb studs, since I didn't want to heat anodize anything, because I think the Tigerback gives that gold look just enough. I didn't want to overdo it, but really happy with this knife. Love this thing. Definitely need to buy more of them, and I highly recommend this knife if you're looking for a knife that is just crazy good function-wise. Opening, closing, beautifully done, beautifully tuned. The ergos are amazing. You even have this flat jimped area here in the front where you can land with your finger, and just, it's really good, really comfortable, and I can't say enough good things about it. So that is the Tauser K from Kizer, and we will move on to the next one. Now this one I just had a really fun time customizing. This is the Civivi Thug 2. And before I even purchased the knife, I actually bought this material. Again, this is Gicarda. I forgot the name of it. I'll put it up on screen, but I think it's one of the coolest Gicarda materials made. But everything that Greg makes is beautiful, but this one really stood out to me. And I purchased the material before I actually even purchased the knife, and I knew that I wanted the all black Thug 2 because I really wanted that black to pop against the Gicarda, which I think it does. And I did create a custom pocket clip out of the leftover material from the Pretatout. I had some left over and I made a custom clip, and it's just it got a beach theme to it, and I figured dunes would be a perfect material for the pocket clip, since that is sandy, beachy, if that makes any sense. I did like this really bright white line in the middle of the Gicarda, and I just wanted to complement it, so I ended up making a white G10 backspacer, and I wanted to get really aggressive with the jimping, so it's pretty aggressive. I did round off the corners and I beveled the edges, and it bites into your thumb really well, but it's not annoying, especially when you're just holding it or gripping onto it regular. You barely feel it. But again, it's just, I wanted to complement that white line in the middle. And the pocket clip is definitely fatter on the tip of it, but the reasoning behind that was I wanted to expose more of that really cool material of the fat carbon. And just an awesome little knife. I would recommend this one too. It's not as great as the Kizer Towser K, but it's still a really good small budget knife, and just a great design overall. Really happy with this Christensen design. I think he makes beautiful knives, and I just really wanted to make this thing pop. But eventually I will get the Wii version of the Thug. I think that's a great looking knife, and since I was able to get this, since it's budget friendly, I can get a better feel for it, and knowing that, I definitely will like the Wii Thug. And this is my own personal knife, so I'm definitely going to be holding on to this for quite a while. I might end up selling the scales and the pocket clip, basically everything that I created. I might just end up selling those and then create new scales and a backspacer and clip. So we'll see what happens in the future. But that is the Civivi Thug 2. And the last knife here is same material, but this is going to be a gift to Greg from G-Carta, the man who makes this awesome material. And the reason I'm gifting it to him is he's just a really great guy. The last time I was up there in Idaho, he was really cool. He's very laid back and just good conversation. So I wanted to thank him. This is what I created for him. I think he's really going to enjoy it. But again, this knife was really, really fun to create and customize. It's a bit on the smaller side, definitely a small knife, but just a beautiful design from Dirk Pinkerton. I love the shape of the blade. I love the shape of the whole knife. It's just really, really beautifully designed. And definitely going to buy a few more of these for myself and create some different looks. There was just a satin finish on this blade. I was thinking about etching it, but I didn't want to go too dark. So this one's definitely more light and very surfer beach dude-esque, if that makes any sense. But I ended up creating a custom white G10 pocket clip just to really complement those brighter colors, and really, really pleased with it. Really good ergos for how small this thing is. Surprisingly good. And just overall, a really great knife. This is another knife I would highly recommend in the budget category for, you know, basic tasks. Very light. I mean, you're barely going to notice this thing in pocket. And just, again, beautifully designed. Very smooth. It's writing on bearings. 14C 28N steel, I believe. Or no, 154C, I'm sorry. So you're actually getting a pretty darn good steel. The way it opens, I mean, Spidey flick all day, thumb flick. I mean, it's just a great knife. Love this thing. But there is the custom Kizer Urban Bowie, which was, again, a joy to customize. So really happy with that one as well. But so far, these are my favorite custom builds of this year. And what I'm going to do right now is take these knives off the board and put the future projects of 2022 here on the board, and we're going to talk a little bit about those too. So here we have the future project knives of 2022, and I guess we'll start off with the Dirk Pinkerton Chunk. This is from Beyond EDC. Awesome knife. Saw this at Texas Blade Show earlier this year, and I had to have it. Got this at House of Blades. They hooked me up, and just a quick shout out to them. Check out their website. I'll leave a link down below where you guys can check out their stuff. But just an awesome, awesome knife. And the idea I have for this is to create a custom show side scale. Right now I'm thinking fat carbon. If not G-Carta, I'll figure something out. And then a custom pocket clip. Not that there's an issue with it. It's just I want to do something cool with it. Definitely going to etch in stone and wash the blade. But awesome knife. And then this is my brother-in-law's ZT-03.05. No, 03.50. This is a beast of a knife, very chunky as well. It is assisted, not a fan, but it's not too bad. Really, really good knife. Very solid. It's going to be a workhorse, but I will be creating Mexican blanket G-Carta scales for this, and I think it's going to look really, really good. Awesome knife. And then we have a very interesting Tucson knife. I call it the Rhino, but this is the Tucson TS, let's see here, TS87 in D2 steel. But I got this knife just because it's unique, it's different. It really caught my attention, and I had to have it. Got this one on White Mountain Knives. This one is, I'm gonna create a bigger finger choil here in the front, just so you can get a better grip. It's not terrible, but that's something I would like. And definitely going to be creating new scales. This micarta material is pretty rough, and definitely want to create something cool. Definitely going to be getting a custom pocket clip, that's for sure. But this one's going to be really interesting, and I can't wait to get started on it. Next up, we have the Viper Turn. I'm still waiting for the Viper Turn Essential. Basically, it's just a full stainless steel liner version of this. This is the titanium bolster with the green micarta scales, but just a beautiful knife. And I want to change up the pocket clip because I'm just not a fan of it since it sticks out so much. You can see right here. And honestly, I'm just not a fan of deep carry pocket clips anyway. So definitely going to be changing that. Etching stone, washing the blade, and I'm not quite sure what I'll be creating for the scales, but just a really, really cool knife. And I highly recommend you check out White Mountain Knives sales section or open box return section because you can get some really, really cool knives for a really good price. And we have the Fox Suru that I picked up earlier this year at Texas Blade Show. Love this knife. Ergos are amazing. Beautiful design. I am not a fan of holes in scales, but this one's not too bad. You can barely feel those holes. And the only issue I have with this knife, even though I really, really love it, is this pocket clip. It's terrible. And the reason it's terrible is because when you grip it, it really pokes you in the palm. And I am not a fan of that. And to be honest, I'm really not a fan of wire clips anyway because they're just kind of flimsy. And I mean, they work great as a pocket clip, but I don't know, the strength isn't there. Let me know if you guys are fans of pocket clips or wired pocket clips. So far, I'm not, but love this knife. Can't wait to customize it. I will be creating a custom show side scale out of fat carbon, which I have right here. This is what I'll be using, the Mars Valley orange to complement the orange anodized aluminum frame lock side, which I think will go really, really well. Again, love their stuff. But that is the goal with this knife, and then I'm going to create a custom pocket clip out of the same material of fat carbon, and I think it'll go really, really well with this knife. And last but not least, we have a fixed blade. This is the Real Steel Furrier. I think that's how you say it. This is an N690. It is a Skinner fixed blade, and I just think it's a beautifully, beautifully designed knife. Very simple and clean. I love a good belly on a blade. That is my weakness. And another weakness of mine on a blade is a harpoon shaped blade, which this is. So this immediately stood out to me because it has everything I like in a knife. Love this knife. Think it's great. Definitely going to be taking it on my trip later this year for just to use it camping, cutting up, prepping food, that kind of stuff. You'll see it in those videos here later. And the only thing I don't like is the sheath because it's very loose. I mean, it's gonna fall out if you're not careful with it. So I might do my first Kydex sheath. There's a lot of stuff involved to create your own Kydex sheath, but we'll see what happens. Or maybe I'll mess with this one. But that's the only thing I really don't like about this knife. But I don't know what exactly I'll be doing for the scales. I'm leaning more towards G-Carta, but you never know. Fat carbon might end up on it, or maybe both. We'll see. But these are the future projects I will be getting to later this year, and we'll see what happens. Maybe some things will change, but I'm excited to do these and get to them. And as always, you guys, thank you for watching and supporting the channel. I really, really do appreciate it. And as always, I will see you guys on the next one.